advice. You can take it or you can leave it. In the market today, there are more coaches and experts spewing advice than ever before, and we see them all over the place. They're on that TikTok channel. They're all over Slapface and Linked Up, and everybody just, take my advice, take my advice. But what advice are we really taking in? And on the flip side, what advice are we giving that's really landing, that people are adopting? When's the last time that you took a bit of advice and took it to heart and put it into action? Take a moment, think about that. Because advice causes you to do something that you're currently not doing and apply it. The last piece of advice that I received, that I've taken fully, wholly to heart, came from a gentleman by the name of Dr. Vincenten. Dr. Vincenten is a chiropractor. He's been in the business for a long time, so he's an expert. And I went to see him because I had pain, like literal physical pain in my neck. The kind of pain that is so chronic that it takes up a mental headspace, that's what starts to fill your day as opposed to productive things. You just think about your pain. So I went to see him and I was like, Dr. V, what can you do to fix this? He's like, we can put together a plan. He's like, but I need you to do something specific for me. What is it? Whatever you want, I'll do it. He's like, it's one thing. I want you to go home. I want you to find some old towels. I want you to roll them up, tape them, soak them in water, put them inside of a bag, roll it inside of a towel, and then about 3 to 5 times a day, as you think about it, especially as you're thinking about your neck, I want you to take this towel, put it on the edge, like on the edge of a bed or a couch or a stage, and then I need you to lay down. I want you to put your head over the top of that and then look backwards. Because you see, the pain that I'm having comes from C6, it's collapsing. And likely all of you are, I see all the good posture happening right now, is the same thing is happening. Because we're sitting at desks or we're looking at phones and it's causing our neck to collapse. So I have a little bit of a bulging disc that's sending tone down the outsides of my hands. He's like, do this along with coming to see me. We can take care of this. I took his advice, as you can see. I put it into practice. Is my pain gone? No. But is it worlds better? Absolutely. One of the conversations I had with Dr. V, because I see him about 3 times a week, he said, Keith, how's it going? I was like, I haven't thought about my neck all day until I came here. That's progress. Let's break down the advice that Dr. Vincenten gave me. 1, he's an expert at this. He's been doing this for 30-some years. He may have even invented chiropractic work. Who knows? 2nd, it was one thing specifically that I had to do. Take towels, roll them up, soak it in water, and just lay on them 3 to 4 times a week, or 3 to 4 times a day. And then the 3rd part is that positive reinforcement. 1, I was personally seeing the benefits of this. But secondly, most importantly, I'm seeing Dr. V and he's giving me that positive reinforcement. You're doing a great job. You touch my neck. He's like, this feels so much better than it did before. How do you feel? It's like, I feel better. When advice is given in that format, 1, it's from an expert who has likely seen this issue before, and it's one thing. How often are we in a conversation that's like, oh, you want the road to health and wellness? Well, first of all, you got to start drinking more water. Then you got to go to bed early on time. And you got to wake up in the morning. You got to get your workout first thing. And then you got to have a protein shake. And then you got to have this. And you're like, I don't even know where to start. It's overwhelming. It needs to be one thing. And then that positive reinforcement. I have a good friend of mine. His name is Kaza. He's a former Marine. And he was going into special ops. And part of special ops is you have to be able to swim. I mean, you're a Marine, for heaven's sake. And he could swim, basically swimming without drowning. We've all been in water. We know what that feels like. It's panicky. So he decides, like, I need to swim, I need to practice. So he goes to the pool. And his first day, he's swimming, and it's terrible. And the water's in his eyes, and he feels like he's drowning. He gets done. And there's this gentleman. When I say gentleman, I mean gunnery sergeant. When I mean gunnery sergeant, he's the kind of guy with a 1,000-yard stare when he's staring at the McDonald's menu. Like, he's looking through it. Sees it all. And he goes up to Kazi. He's like, I see you want to learn to swim. He's like, yes, sir, I really do. He's like, get yourself a pair of goggles. might get that water out of your eyes. He's like, goggles, check. Goes out, buys goggles, comes back the next day, he's swimming with the goggles. The gunny's there, he's like, hey, you got the goggles, those helping out. He's like, these things are great. He's like, why don't you try this? Open up your reach a little bit when you're doing your freestyle stroke. Goggles comes back the next day, opens it up. And every single day that he comes back, the gunny is there to encourage him on his behavior and to give him just one more thing. You see, when we parse out the advice as opposed to trying to tap it all down somebody's throat because this is everything you need to know, there's a greater likelihood of adoption. And that's really what we're looking for when we give this advice. We deliver it with the best of intentions, but oftentimes the person who's receiving this is just overwhelmed by it. It's too much. The other day, I received the holy grail of an email. And it came from somebody who I'd given advice to. They actually got back to me. We talk about that reciprocal piece, that positive reinforcement that we need to receive. They reached out to me. And it felt so good. And in his email, he'd written that I took your advice. The one thing you told me to do, I did it. And you know what? It works. And I'm going to do it again because I know that this works. And the advice is the advice that I always give to people who want to become better speakers and better presenters. It's one piece of advice. If you're going to do one thing to become a better speaker, you have to say the words out loud before you stand up on that stage and deliver. Do you think this is the first time that I'm hearing myself say these words? No. I was that weird guy out at City Park standing in the middle of the whole thing as people playing Frisbee with their dogs and running around with their kids. I'm standing up there and I'm doing these kinds of motions and I'm hearing myself say these words out loud. So when the time comes for me to stand before all of you, it's not the first time that I'm hearing it. It builds that confidence. So the next time that you get ready to speak, put in the practice. Just say the words out loud. Just do that one thing, and the time you spend up here is going to be a lot more organized, it's going to be a lot more thoughtful, and you're going to have that much more fun. So when it comes to advice, make sure you're getting advice from an expert, right? Not that person who tells you should eat Brussels sprouts, but they don't eat Brussels sprouts themselves. That's not a credible source. Make sure it's just one thing. The one thing that they need to do, that next step, that's what people are really looking for. And positive reinforcement. Whether they're experiencing it themselves or you have a chance to connect with them again to do that little bit of that follow-up. How's it going? Are you putting it to good use? That's my advice, everybody. Take it or leave it. Thank you, sir.